This is what makes women's basketball so fire.
I mean, I just love playing the game. It's fun.
To see how far the game has grown has been amazing.
They say nobody watching. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people in there, Martin.
Yeah, I think I've always just been able to get downhill.
When recess came, like, I had my sneakers on.
I hit them with a hezzy. After that, they quit.
What is up? What is up? What is up? We got Nick Andre in the comments rushing us, telling us that he's waiting. Good morning, brother. How you doing? And to all those else who are watching, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queens podcast, presented by Basketball Society. With me, as always, my guy, my brother in Christ, my partner in women's basketball crime, Martin Sori is my guy. How we feeling? How we feeling? How we feeling?
Doing good. I got the Sammy Sosa. I don't know the routine, but I remember the old Sammy Sosa celly. Top of the morning, man. Yeah. Always good to wake up and just get right to talking some basketball, especially some women's basketball. Final Four weekend coming up. You know, we have a few pressing things. I wish Final Four was the only thing we had to talk about, but we got a little more to react to this morning. But yeah, good to be here. Anyone who's watching, tapped in with us live. Nick, my man, in the comments. Good to see you, brother. Good to have you here. Just had Nick on the show last week or the week before talking about the tournament and stuff, and Nick does a great job. But yeah, anyone else, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, to Basketball Society, so you don't miss out on the Protect Our Queens podcast. If you don't like women's basketball, this is not the place for you, and don't miss out on these live episodes. We're here in the morning sometimes, so if you want some good basketball talk in the morning, especially during this tournament time, this is the place for you. Marcus was out and about last night, raging at Chromacopia. had my niece jealous. Shout out to my niece. It's her birthday today. She's not watching this right now, but if she ever does, she'll know her uncle shouted her out on his podcast. So she's 14 years old today. Pray for me. Please pray for me. Jeez. 14 is just absolutely insane.
Yeah. My niece just
shout out to my niece Nariah. She was so jealous of you last night. She loves Tyler the Creator. She used to just love Moana and Frozen and toys, and now she just loves shopping and Tyler the Creator. She loves Tyler.
It's funny how it all unfolded. Our regional director at work puts in our chat, he's like, I've got tickets to Tyler the Creator. Does anybody want anything? And yesterday's April Fool's Day, so we're all like, "Are you being serious? Or are you being for real?" My boss isn't really. He doesn't look like a Tyler the Creator guy. So I'm like, okay, my interest has been piqued, and he sends the tickets, and I'm like, "Oh, great, I'd love to go." And so I text my friend Bryce and I text my friend Charlton, and I said, "Do you guys want to go to Tyler the Creator tonight?" And they said, "Absolutely." Well, they said something a little bit more expletive, but they said absolutely. And then he's like, "Oh well, before I give the tickets all to Marcus, let's just make sure that anybody else who wants to go doesn't want to go." And I'm just like, bro, don't do this to me, bro. Like, let's just give you all the tickets. And so like 2 hours later, he texts me and he's like, "Yeah, I don't feel like driving down from Annapolis, so all 3 tickets are yours." I was like, great. And so my plan on Tuesday night was to watch the McDonald's All-American games. And instead I was at Capital One Arena raging with Tyler the Creator. It was a great night. It was a great night. Martin's like, Martin texted me towards the end. He's like, "You better be up and ready to go at 8:30 tomorrow morning." And here we are.
I don't know how those Tyler shows are, but I just imagine it's a lot of energy.
It was a lot of energy, and it was an experience to say the least. And it was my first concert. It was great. We were in the
first ever concert.
I've never been to a concert before. No, so it was my first. I was in a seat, bro. It was nice. It was a great night.
I know we're 14, 15 years apart, but certain things just really shock me about your life experience thus far. Well, that was your first concert?
Well, here's the thing. I'm an only child. I grew up rather sheltered. I was a pretty sheltered individual. The one concert I wanted to go to was when J. Cole was here after he dropped the off season. Like he was here on a Monday, I was working at Popeyes at the time. Hated that place. It was a payday, so I'll never forget it. And I couldn't get off in time to go to the concert. So J. Cole would have been my first concert a couple years ago, but I couldn't go. So instead,
if you could pick a concert to go to, what's top of the bill for you for a concert? If you could go to one tomorrow, J. Cole.
Yeah. If J. Cole, it's funny because Dreamville Fest is this weekend, and my friend Bryce, he goes every year. I won't be going because I'll be in New York next week with you for the draft, and so I gotta.
That's right.
I got to make sure that the money is moneying, and I got to be a little bit
right.
responsible. But J. Cole,
Chromacopia, Chromacopia, Chromacopia. How long have you been a Tyler fan? Have you been?
The thing is, I'm not like a super fan. I listen casually. I did listen to the album when it dropped, not when it dropped, maybe like a couple days after. But I'm not like a super big Tyler fan.
Okay.
Which is why I wanted to go with my friends Bryce and Charlton, because they are Tyler fans. So I knew that they would have like I wasn't gonna be in there going bar for bar with Tyler. Like that's just not right. I was there for the vibes and the energy and the food. They have good foods in the suite. So it was nice. They were going bar to bar. I was in there, doing it's interesting, I was trying to be respectful because you're in a suite with a bunch of other people, and the people a little bit more put together than I am. I wasn't trying to be too crazy in these people's suite, but I had a good time. It was a good night. It was a nice way to spend a Tuesday night.
Put together. I was on Tyler from I want to say from the beginning, but Odd Future. I was in college when that was like when the wave was starting to come out. So Earl Sweatshirt, Damo Genesis, man, we were on that early. Tron, one of the first videos from Tyler. Yeah, my buddies put me on when Odd Future was coming out. We were on it. Frank Ocean, like it was when that Odd Future wave hit. We were definitely into it. And I've continued to follow Tyler. His Wolf album was great. All of his albums, honestly, have been really good. I'm not a super fan either. Like I wouldn't be able to go bar for bar. More so on like some of the older stuff.
He was in college. Goodness gracious. All right. As Martin mentioned, we do have a lot to talk about today. We are going to talk about the Final Four. Both matchups this weekend are going to be very interesting. So please stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, we got some breaking news late. Was that Monday morning or Monday night? Excuse me. Shams
during the game.
Broke the news during the game that Olivia Miles is not only not declaring for the WNBA draft this season, she is entering the transfer portal. For those guys who don't know, just because you enter the transfer portal doesn't mean you're leaving your school. Right. She obviously still can return to Notre Dame if she chooses to. Right. But with all the other players that have entered the transfer portal since, I think I read something on Twitter the other day where like there's only 2 players on the roster right now who played this past season who are not in the portal.
On Notre Dame.
On Notre Dame.
Yeah, it's Hannah and Cassandra.
Cassandra
Prosper, yeah.
So maybe there's a little bit more to this than what we might think. Initial reactions, initial thoughts. I know that you were super pumped to go on your Hannah Hidalgo World Tour if they won a national championship this year, and that kind of unraveled. But this was certainly unexpected, Martin. What are we thinking and just reacting to Olivia being in the transfer portal?
I wish this was an April Fool's joke. I wish this was the April Fool's joke. So yeah, there are some layers to this. There is some context to this that we don't really know much yet for sure. People are out there speculating based on some things. I guess the biggest thing for me in terms of Olivia not wanting to play her final college season at Notre Dame, I know a lot of people are pointing to Hannah, and I will give some thoughts on that. Because I think based on circumstances and some events, which we have mentioned on here before related to Hannah, that some people may not be as aware of if they're not in the internet streets. But and I think it's fair to assume based on those things that might be playing a factor here. But I don't want to start with that because I don't want to start with the mess and the drama of it. But I think the biggest thing for me is, and it's all connected, so it could be tied to maybe a rift with Hannah or something. But I think the main thing for me is Olivia choosing to not play for Niele Ivy next year. I think that's the biggest thing I'm trying to think through is like, and there could be so many different reasons, right? Like, I covered Olivia in high school. She played at Blair Academy here in Jersey. Some have speculated she might want to play her last year closer to home. maybe go to Princeton or something. Fun fact, Olivia Miles was our first Protect Our Queens interview right here on this channel. Before the Protect Our Queens podcast, we had just Protect Our Queens on Basketball Society. She was our first interview. This was at right after she had committed to Notre Dame. So we talked about her going there, playing for Niel. Over the years, she has always had glowing remarks about Niel, and they clearly had a great relationship and admiration for one another. So some have speculated that maybe, and because like Kate Koval is in the transfer portal too, you mentioned like Notre Dame only has 2 players on the roster from this past season now. And so some have speculated that Niele Ivey might be getting let go, or that she may have tipped off her players that she is moving on. And that might be a reason why Olivia, part of the reason why she may not want to stick around. I don't see that as that likely or realistic. Some have floated that Niele Ivey has like underachieved with like losing in the Sweet 16. I think like 4 out of the last 5 years or something. You could look at it the other way and say she's been to the Sweet 16 4 of the last 5 years. But I don't think her getting let go is as realistic as maybe her leaving, but I don't really see her leaving either. So I just wanted to start with that. Like it must be something real. Again, it could be like maybe she wants to come closer to home. I know Olivia is kind of like a nerd in her own right, like a proud nerd. So maybe a Princeton, maybe she wants to go Ivy League, change up her look and environment. Entering the transfer portal suggests that she's open to kind of changing her environment next year. Maybe it's at a place like Princeton. Others have speculated places like UConn, LSU. Before getting into thinking about Olivia Miles on a different team and what that could mean, I'm still just trying to process why this is even happening. Why am I being robbed? Sorry, I don't want to be selfish. Why are we being robbed of the best backcourt in college basketball that we saw this season, which I told people we were going to see? And it was exciting. It was wonderful. Of course, they fell short in the Sweet 16. But it's crazy to think that we won't. The idea of Olivia coming back to school another year, what made that so exciting was the fact that she would have another crack at it with Hannah, with Niele, and the fact that we're going to see her in another jersey is just mind-boggling to me. But I'm shocked that she wouldn't choose to play. What does she feel like she's going to get somewhere else? Like, people are talking about NIL, and I get, like, when you transfer, you create a bidding war, and we've seen that players will get like 2 to 3 times more from the school they're transferring to, because it creates a bidding war. People are writing checks now. You can pay for players now. It's legal. It's out there. So I can get that, and like seeing what her options are, creating a bidding war. I get that, but people are acting like Notre Dame doesn't have an NIL. Like, you can make money at Notre Dame too. So people are like, oh, NIL money opportunity. Niele Ivey you don't see Niele Ivey in all these commercials. Notre Dame clearly believes in NIL, and they've got money. So I don't know if it's just a money thing. So again, there are different factors at play, possibly, but I just can't believe we have to experience this. I wish her the best. I'm sure she's going to make a great decision for herself, because Olivia is a very smart girl. You also have the WNBA new CBA thing going on. So people have mentioned that with the money and the business IQ and decision possibly for her. We know in 2026, there will be a new CBA, a new deal, the potential for more money, bigger contracts. So people have pointed to that too, where Olivia forgoes this year, comes back into the draft next year for potential for more money. So in that sense, it could make good business sense.
I'm glad you brought up the money component, because that's the part of this that's been super annoying to me. And it's so I saw a tweet. I won't say the person's names. I don't want to like make it seem like I'm like bashing the person, but basically what he said was he tweeted out like the average salary of a WNBA player, or the top 4 picks from the WNBA last season was like a touch over $76,000. And comparatively, the top 4 players in women's basketball on average made $1.1 million in NIL money. And I've seen a lot of people trying to compare the fact and justify that, the WNBA has a problem if should she have declared for the draft, a lock as top 4 pick in the draft in a couple weeks, was going to, instead of going to the league, stay in college for NIL money. And I just want to perfectly clear, this is apples and oranges. WNBA salary, if you're going to compare money made to NIL in the WNBA, you compare it to endorsements, because that's what NIL money becomes when you go professional. It becomes endorsement money, right? So we're not comparing, it is not fair or a level playing field to compare the average WNBA salary of a top 4 pick at $76,000 to how much money Olivia would be making in NIL money, which is a touch over 1.1 million, assuming she is up there in the ranks, right? So here's my belief. Olivia Miles last season missed all of last season due to an injury. This was her first year back from an injury where she didn't play at all. She didn't play basketball for an entire year, and she played great this season. It is my belief that Olivia Miles feels it would be better for her rookie season in the WNBA to be 3 years removed from a gruesome injury compared to 2 years removed from a gruesome injury. Maybe she wants to get a little bit stronger. Maybe there's still some things she wants to work out a little bit more. Maybe as great as she played this season, maybe she feels like she can play even better being another year removed from that injury. And I don't think that it is, I don't think that this is just a money thing. Like, I think, like, my beef with the whole NIL thing now, especially when it comes to the WNBA, is now that NIL is a thing, and now that we're seeing girls make money and get brand deals and be in all these different types of commercials and stuff, now people who aren't tapped in, who aren't really watching the product, are using that to say as a demerit to the WNBA. I don't think that's the case. I felt the same way about when we started to see a couple players go to like G League at night instead of going to college to get to the NBA draft. Like, it's the same thing. There's a lot of different routes to do this. And for me, it's not surprising that she chose to not declare for the draft. That's not surprising, because I sent you the tweet where she said she was kind of on the fence about whether or not she was going to declare. So her not declaring for the draft isn't the surprising thing about this. What's surprising, as you mentioned, is that in her final year of college eligibility, she's choosing, or at least it seems like she's choosing, to spend that year playing somewhere other than Notre Dame. That's the part that's surprising. I think I saw someone on Twitter where someone had thrown out there the possibility that maybe she just wants to have a shot at competing for a championship. Maybe that's a possibility. Now, of the list of teams that I saw on there, because I know that you had sent me the list of teams where, like, that she had, gotten offers from previously, right? I saw Stanford on there. You mentioned Princeton. The only team on that list where she could go to next season and have a legitimate shot at winning a national championship would be UConn. Yeah. That would be the only school from that list where she'd have a better shot at winning a championship next season compared to just staying put in Notre Dame. I'm not in this speculation business. Maybe there is a little bit more to this than what we know. Maybe we'll find out in a couple years when someone writes a book. Maybe we'll find out in a couple months once it's all settled down and someone just sits down for an interview. But the NIL component of this, the financial component of this, is really a non-issue, in my opinion. Like, that's really not, I think, as big of a factor as it seems like a lot of people on Twitter have tried to make it seem. I think the story here is that Olivia Miles is choosing to play her final year of college. It's somewhere other than Notre Dame. That's the part I think that we should really be focused on. That's right. Because that's shocking when you think about the fact that Notre Dame, just 3 weeks before the tournament, was the #1 seed in the country. They're the best team in the country. They obviously lost some games down the stretch, fell apart a little bit there, had an early exit in the ACC tournament, and then obviously, as you alluded to, lost in the Sweet 16. There's like, that should be the focus. We shouldn't be worried about, oh, she's choosing, NIL money in college over the WNBA. That's really a non-issue compared to what we should really be talking about here.
Yeah. And so on that note, from a basketball standpoint, and it's hard to not talk about the Hannah thing without the social standpoint. But just from a basketball standpoint, it is interesting to me that, because again, the biggest surprise to me is Niele Ivey, that she is seemingly choosing to at least open to the possibility of not playing for Niele Ivy. That surprises me because I really feel like if you listen to any time they talk about each other, they had a real close relationship. So unless there's something up with Ivy that we don't know about, you kind of start to look at Hannah, because the next biggest surprise of her not wanting to play for Notre Dame in her last year is that she's choosing or open to the possibility of not playing with Hannah. And we saw how magical, how electric the two of them could be together. But there may have been things that Olivia noticed or felt or sensed in terms of, even just think about the fact that Notre Dame won the ACC last year without Olivia. The team was elite with Hannah running the show, and she was the focal point. When Olivia came in, it was like, okay, great, even more help. But I guess I'm just thinking maybe because, and here's the thing, Marcus, Olivia and Hannah are both point guards. Like, people slot Hannah as a shooting guard now because she's been playing the two, because Olivia's the kind of point guard where Hannah will defer and be like, you play the point, you take that responsibility, especially when Hannah had all the attention on her last year as the lead guard. So Hannah has been playing the two very well, very comfortably, and has turned into become one of the top scorers in the nation at the two guard. But the reality is Hannah is a point guard. And maybe the whole 2-point guard thing with Hannah evolving into more of a volume shooting guard, maybe that's something just from a basketball standpoint that Liv said, hey, Hannah, the program is yours. Like, you go ahead and take it over. You had success without me. You guys won the ACC last year. Maybe just from a basketball standpoint, she started to feel like, let Hannah do this. I've got one more year left. Maybe she wasn't feeling, and look, over the last couple months, Notre Dame wasn't looking the same. They started out the first few months great, and then the last couple months, you saw that there was clearly something happening. Their chemistry was taking a hit. They just didn't look the same. So maybe there were things happening behind the scenes. Maybe their chemistry was disrupted based on certain things. But just from a basketball standpoint, I find it really interesting that, again, Olivia's choosing to possibly not play for Niele Ivy and not play with Hannah Hidalgo. You mentioned the prospect of Olivia Miles being on a team that can win a national championship. That's going to be interesting to see kind of what her motives are, what her agenda is here. Like, if that is the case, and forget the list of teams that she was considering before she committed, just in general, the teams right now that are national title contender worthy. I mentioned LSU earlier. So you're looking at LSU, a UConn, a South Carolina, a UCLA. Look at just basically the teams in the elite. Look at the other teams in the Elite Eight, Final Four. Those are the teams you're looking at. Yeah. As far as like, would Olivia Miles want to go to a program that is built to compete for a national championship? Stanford and Princeton wouldn't suggest that. That would suggest she wants to more like enjoy her final year, play her game, like you said, maybe get stronger. Last quick thing, I'll stay on it. My sister always told me, you got to go while you're hot. And I certainly wish the best for Liv. I mean, again, she was our first interview on Protect Our Queens. Love her to death. She's a Jersey girl. I've watched her since high school. I've talked about how special I feel she is and will be even at the next level. I think she's a game-changing, program-changing, franchise-changing point guard. Wherever she goes for her last year, she's going to elevate that team. But, you know, it's got to be somewhere. And I think she's super smart and she'll make the right decision for herself. But listen, I've always believed you got to go while you're hot to be the projected number 2 pick and not. And, you know, you're right. It's not just about money and like WNBA versus I can make more money staying in school. I don't even think it's that. It's not even really about that. But even just from a health and like stock standpoint, like you don't want your stock to drop. And look, how much higher can your stock go than projected number 2 pick, maybe up to number 1 pick, but like it becomes a little bit of a gamble with your stock in that sense. But I mean, I think she'll be fine. I'm just fascinated at what kind of school she may transfer to.
Absolutely. To everyone that's watching right now, we appreciate you guys for tapping in with us early this morning as we talk about we finish wrapping up the conversation on Olivia Miles entering the transfer portal.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Anyone who might be watching live
or
on the playback, leave some comments. Let us know what you think about the Olivia Miles.
You have 2 comments from Nick. First one, he says, it's confusing because after they lost to TCU, Olivia stated that she, quote, outgrew college, then decides to pass up on the draft and hit the portal. Then he followed that up by asking, what are your thoughts on Olivia at TCU?
So I think that that comment now feels like she meant that she might have really been saying that she outgrew Notre Dame because she's staying in college. So if she felt like she outgrew college, then she would have gone to the pros. So subliminally, what she probably was really saying to us was, I've outgrown Notre Dame, which is interesting. TCU is interesting, and I think like we're looking at now in this transfer portal era, teams like you have certain coaches and certain programs that are going to be in that portal. Notre Dame and Neo Ivy, assuming she's still there, better be in that portal. I mean, they got to be in the portal. They need players. Yeah. So, but I think we're going to see certain programs. TCU came up with Haley Van Lith. Iowa came up with Lucy Olson. USC came up with Kiki Iriafen. I think we'll see certain programs continue to try to make big come-ups with transfers. So TCU, with their experience with Haley this year, I could see them making a call to Olivia. I could see them trying to make that pitch for sure, because they've experienced the benefits of a big transfer and seeing what they can do for their program. So I could definitely, I'm still wrapping my head around, like, I don't even have an answer. Where I want to see Olivia Miles play next year is the University of Notre Dame. I don't have any like projections or like, oh, she could go here. Like I have a couple thoughts, but I'm still just trying to recover from the reality that she may not be in a Notre Dame uniform.
Yep. And then last thing, Felix John Baptiste just popped in and said, flabbergasted. If she stays at Notre Dame, don't see that much competition at the top with Juju out, Paige out. South Carolina should still be there, but if it's about winning, Notre Dame has a great shot.
Yeah, that's the thing too. It's like, if you want to win, that's what I keep saying. Like, what does she get from anywhere else that she can't get from Notre Dame? Whether it's money, contending for a championship, playing for a great coach, like those things are checked off at Notre Dame. So that's where you have to start to read between the lines and look at the discourse on Twitter and all the extracurricular context to this situation. Yeah. And it's fair to assume that might have something to do with it, because up to this point, it has felt like she has everything she needs at Notre Dame to be successful. But clearly, she may not feel that way anymore.
Absolutely. Well, again, we appreciate you guys for tapping in with us. Stay tapped in, because we're going to transition over now to talk about the first of 2 Final Four matchups that are taking place on Friday, that being South Carolina versus Texas. A couple months ago, I kind of ripped South Carolina a new one.
When Raven Johnson and Tahina Paopao are combined 2 of 12 from the field, or 2 of 11, or whatever it was, that's not a recipe for success. No amount of depth that is going to overcome just an inability to be successful at the top.
Depth I think is what saves them, because it's like in those games, if Raven's not hitting a shot, Malaysia might hit a shot. Tessa Johnson might be hitting shots. Bree Hall might be hitting shots. So that's where I trust their depth to make up for times when they might be struggling.
But we're not going to them in the big moment.
When you say going to them, that's a deeper conversation about their system. Yeah. And even how you said ball movement, I don't think of great ball movement when I think
it's not great, but it's bad this year.
So I've been having a bit of a conniption this season, and Martin has gotten an earful from me in various moments, both my ups and my downs when it comes to the South Carolina women's basketball team this year. For the 4th time this season, South Carolina will be taking on Texas, and this time the trip to the national championship is on the line. South Carolina leads the series 2-1, having beaten them once in the regular season and then again in the SEC championship game. And as you saw there in the clip, my big concern for this South Carolina team this season has been the guard play. Right. When you look at, in fact, at the end of the season last season, when we were reacting to South Carolina winning the national championship, the one thing that I pointed out in that conversation. We don't have the clip for it tonight, but one thing I point out in that conversation is when you look at the guards, Raven Johnson, Tahina Powell, Tessa Johnson, Malaysia Fawali, I fully expected that to be the best guard group in the country. I even said at the top of the season that one of the things I'm looking at as far as how successful South Carolina can be this season as it relates to getting back to and hopefully winning their second consecutive national championship, fourth overall, would be how well the guards play, because we no longer have the 6-7 advantage down low of Camila Cardoso, obviously, that we relied on so much last season to win that national championship. And there have been moments where I have been over the moon happy and ecstatic. There have been moments where I have been down in the dumps, absolutely pissed off at the basketball that I've seen from our guards. I will be honest. So much so, and I've had so much focus on the guards that at times this season, I've almost taken for granted how well a Joyce Edwards has played and how well even a Chloe Kitts has played. There were a stretch of the season when Chloe Kitts was the best player on the team. Yeah. And you could argue, at least from a totality standpoint, as far as the body of work that each player has put together individually, that Chloe Kitts has probably been the best player on the team all year. As far as consistency is concerned, as far as like playing big and playing well in big time games, right? She obviously didn't play that great when we got blown out against UCLA earlier on in the season. But when you look in the games when she's playing well, when she's getting double doubles, more often than not, we're winning those games. And so shout out to Chloe Kitts for that. When I look at this Texas matchup from the South Carolina standpoint, and I think back to Sunday's game against Duke, what I saw in that Duke game, what I've seen in all of these games, really, except for the Tennessee Tech game where we beat them up handily, which, I mean, no disrespect to Tennessee Tech, but, I mean, that's to be expected, right? Look at the Indiana game. Look at the Maryland game, even the Duke game.
Right.
There was at no point in time in either of those three games until, like, the very end when they kind of pulled away.
Yeah.
Where South Carolina looked like the number one seed in their region, the number two team overall in the tournament, and more importantly, the team that Dawn Staley and others were saying was deserving of the number one overall seed in this tournament, which obviously went to UCLA. Like, that was the big thing for South Carolina going in. It's like, you know, the way that we have our schedule set up and the way that we played games this season, you know, who we beat, when we beat them, how we beat them, we deserve to be the number one overall seed in this tournament. And you would think, feeling that way, that they would come out and they would play that way. And 3 out of 4 games up to this point, they haven't, right? At no point in time, except for down the stretch of these games, did South Carolina look like the better team on the court definitively, right, throughout the course of the game. The Indiana game came out flat. The Maryland game, you come out flat. The Duke game, you come out flat. We're down to the last 4. And this is a Texas team that you are very familiar with. You come out flat, they're going to punch you in the mouth. Like, this isn't a Texas team that's just going to, like, this isn't a team that's going to make many mistakes the way that we saw Duke make, the way that we saw Maryland make, the way that we saw Indiana make down the stretch of games. And when I look at this South Carolina team, and when I look at the guards, and we had Chloe Kitts playing iso ball on the wing on Sunday against Duke. Like, when have we ever done that? And so last thing I'll say is this. In the clip, the precursor to that clip, I was talking about how my frustration with this team wasn't so much about the fact that they hadn't dominated this season, because I didn't expect them to dominate this season and go undefeated, obviously. I didn't expect that. But what I expected is, with the absence of Camila Cardoso, there needed to be an adjustment made with the way that the team functions, right? You mentioned a point in that episode that we did about how when you think of South Carolina, you don't think of good ball movement and great passing and all that stuff. You think of great post play and you think of dominant play down low. And the point that I was making was, well, we don't have that. What we do have is 4 very talented guards who are each good at one thing individually. Tahina Powell last season was the best 3-point shooter in the country. We haven't really seen that much this season. Raven Johnson, that was the revenge tour last season, and she was, I would say, the best perimeter defender on the team last season. She hasn't really been that this year. Tessa Johnson came up big in the tournament. You talked about how in that show, after we reacted to the championship, where Dawn Staley said, if you would have told me in June the Tessa Johnson that we saw in the tournament is what we would have gotten, I would have told you were crazy. The growth we saw from Tessa Johnson over the course of the season was remarkable. And then, of course, Malaysia Fawali, she's the Showtimes, she's the facilitator, especially in the fast break. And we've seen that from her. But collectively as a unit, when you don't have the 6-7 advantage down low, you have to rely on consistent play from your guards. And my frustration has been, it was at that point, and even has been to this point in the tournament, we haven't been getting that. And we're going to play the clip a little bit later. I said that South Carolina and UConn were going to meet each other in the national championship this season. So far, I feel pretty prophetic that we've gotten to this point, and that still seems to be intact, and it's still possible. I do think South Carolina can win this game, but you're about to play a team that you've played 3 times before, a team that you beat on the last time you saw them. And if you remember, South Carolina blew out Texas in the first meeting, and then the second meeting, Texas got their get back. And Maddie Booker, at the end of that game, she said, last time they out-toughed us, and we weren't going to let that happen again. This time we out-toughed them. Well, in the SEC championship game, South Carolina out-toughed Texas.
Yeah.
So if history is any indication, they're not going to let South Carolina out-tough them again. They're going to come in with a different game plan. And so the guards have to be better. Like this has to be a game where we see these guards play the way that they played around this time of last season en route to a national championship. If we don't get that, we're going to see Texas playing in a national championship game on Sunday.
I tend to agree with you. I think the South Carolina guards have to win this game, especially because Texas is the biggest thing about Texas is how big they are. It's their size. Kyla Oldeker, how do you say your name? Taylor Jones, Maddie Booker, like they have bodies. They're big. Now, where I push back with what you said is I think we're going to see another low scoring game. That SEC championship game, they held Texas to 45 points. Texas doesn't score a lot of points. When you say they'll punch them in the mouth, that's not what Texas does. They're tough. They're big. They can hang with you, but only if you're not going to be scoring on them. They're so long and so big, it makes their defense so stout, and it's not easy to score on them. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, and it's going to be another stressful game for you because it's going to be low-scoring and it's going to be tight. Unless South Carolina guards can really get into a rhythm, be hitting threes, like unless South Carolina's offense can run it up on them a little bit. Because they won the SEC championship game by 19 points. It was 64-45. Texas scored 45 points. Now, the only way, in my opinion, not the only way, but the main way Texas gives themselves a chance to beat South Carolina is if Madison Booker takes at least 20 shots. She's been getting double-digit shot attempts, but she hasn't. The last time she took over 20 shots, guess when that was? When they beat South Carolina. Yeah. The time before that, the game before that, when she took at least 20 shots, guess when that was? The win against South Carolina was in February. The game before that, when Madison Booker took at least 20 shots, was their win against Tennessee in January. Big SEC wins for Texas, right? Maddie Booker took at least 20 shots. I don't think she's had to in these last couple games because, again, these are low-scoring games. Texas is not the type to come out and, like, punch you in the mouth from an offensive standpoint. Like, if you're not scoring, it's not like they're just going to be running up and have 25 points in the first quarter. That's not really how they typically operate. But I offensively, if Texas is going to get over the hump, Maddie Booker's got to take at least 20 shots. And I loved in the UConn game, this past UConn game where they were saying that they've taken the leash off Sarah Strong. Gino said Gino was saying before the game in their shoot around, they're going through their looks and their sets and they're telling Sarah, hey, don't give up that shot. Don't pass up that shot. The time for being unselfish and passing up shots is over. Yeah. Get your shots up. And we saw her have a little bit. We've seen her have a little bit more of that mentality. Yep. Vic Schaefer has to instill that in Madison Booker. Take at least 20 shots. That's the only way that they're going to compete, but that's the only way that we win this game, I think.
Our guy, Nick Andre, asked a question in the comments, and we're going to answer it on the other side of this quick ad break.
Women's basketball fans, we embrace you here on the Protect Our Queens podcast. We want you to join our conversations, so make sure you subscribe to Basketball Society right here on YouTube, and you can join in on our weekly episodes live, and you won't miss out on any of our content.
Before we answer this question in the comments real quick, to everyone that's watching right now or watching on the playback, we appreciate you for tapping in. Please leave your thoughts, ask any questions, what have you, in the comments. Nick Andre asked, do y'all think SEC's offensive inconsistencies can come to bite them? I do.
I only think it's going to hurt them against UConn. I think UConn is and that's why in their last game they got blown off the floor by UConn because that is a high-powered offensive team. Right. Texas is not a high-powered offensive team, so I think they're going to be fine in this game. I think it's going to be competitive, but just like Indiana and Maryland and Duke, they're gonna beat them, and they know they can beat them because they're SEC. They know each other. I think Texas has a little bit of momentum they're riding right now, and I think that could help them. I think sometimes that experience playing against a team can help. And when the stakes get higher, sometimes you're able to rise above. Madison Booker could turn out to be the best player on the floor. And like I said, that's the best chance they have is if she is that, but not in this game. This is a game where you can be offensively deficient and still win because Texas isn't a high-powered offensive team.
So here's the last thing I'll say on this before we transition over to the UConn UCLA matchup, which is the nightcap on Friday. Coming into the tournament, you and I talked about the 1 seeds. We previewed we looked at the brackets after Selection Sunday, the Monday morning after we talked about it. And the one thing that you and I both agreed upon is the weakest of the 4 number 1 seeds entering the tournament was Texas, for various reasons, right? We both agreed on that. I went as far as to go on Instagram and post a reel saying that whoever won the Tennessee-Ohio State matchup would beat Texas in their eventual meeting. And then when Nick was on the show last Monday, I said that I thought that Tennessee would do Texas really, really bad. Not looking good for me right now when it comes to talking about Texas. But what I will say is this. Even though coming into the tournament, you and I were on the same page about Texas of the 4, South Carolina, Texas, UCLA, USC, the weaker of the number 1 seeds. Excluding Juju's injury, because obviously that plays a massive part in USC not still playing basketball right now. But up to that injury, if you looked at the number 1 seeds and you asked me to rank them according to who I thought was playing the best, I would say that UCLA was playing the best. I would say that USC was right behind them. I would give you Texas. And I would say that South Carolina, based on the body of work that they displayed, has been the worst of the 4 number 1 seeds so far this tournament. They're the only number 1 seed that doesn't have multiple double-digit wins in a game this tournament, I believe. At last I checked. I think they're the only one. UCLA has at least 2. I think Texas has 2. And I think USC has. Yeah. And I said USC before, obviously, Juju got hurt. I think they had 2 as well. The only double-digit win that South Carolina has is when they blew the doors off of Tennessee Tech in the first round. So when we talk about offensive inconsistencies, I think you're right. I think because Texas isn't an offensive unit and an offensive powerhouse, they might be able to get away with it. But I'm not just thinking about getting away with it. I'm thinking about, for South Carolina, what's on the other side of this matchup should they win.
Yeah, that's why I said UConn. It's going to hurt them against UConn, but not Texas.
We can't wait until the national championship to decide.
Listen,
to play the way that we need to be playing to win a championship.
Yeah, but look, bro, at the end of the day, and I know you're a fan, and it makes you emotional when you're a fan, and you watch your team and you have your complaints. You're in the Final Four. Despite all this stuff,
I understand
all the complaints and all the worries and concerns, you're in the Final Four. You're one game away from the national championship. So you're here. Like you're here. You have a chance. Like no matter what it is, you're here. You still have a chance. I don't think it's gonna hurt. I think Dawn's coaching, like I said in the clip, their depth is their crutch. Mm-hmm. That's why they can win low-scoring games. That's why they don't have to blow the doors off, because even if it's a close game against Duke or Maryland or whatever, they don't have the depth to beat out what South Carolina is hitting you with. They have too many weapons, and that's been enough to get them to another Final Four. I think it'll be enough to get them to the national championship. Now, if we have South Carolina, UConn in the national championship, that's where South Carolina is going to have to put on their offensive thinking hats and put on a better performance than the last time they played. Or South Carolina bucks up and holds UConn to under 70 points and gives themselves a chance to win. If it maybe they're going to become, one of the great all-time defensive teams that ends up going from the Sweet 16 through the national championship, not having to score 70 points to win the national championship. Maybe. Regardless, bro, even up to this point, I heard someone, I was on Twitter Spaces, listening to hundreds of people talk about Olivia and all this different stuff with the Final Four, and I heard someone bring up the point that this might be Dawn Staley's best coaching job, based on all the factors we're talking about. That this is her probably least overall talented team that she's made a run with here, and in these last 5 to 6 years, or during this era. If they get to even getting to the Final Four, if they get to the national championship, if they win the national championship, it's not just going to be impressive that they went back to back. It's going to be impressive that Dawn did it with this group. And when we're going to have to talk about the coaching job she did, because despite all the concerns that we've both had, that basketball fans have, South Carolina fans have, they're still in the Final Four. They're one of the 4 teams left, and they could still win the national championship. And I think the only team that's going to stop them at this point is UConn.
You think the only team that's going to stop them is UConn, and I alluded to the fact that around this time last year, after South Carolina won the national championship, I predicted a potential South Carolina-UConn matchup in the national championship this year. I'm going to be honest. I know it's way too early. I know it's April 9th. Season starts somewhere October, November. I don't know if there's a team in the country that's going to beat South Carolina next season or really pose a threat to prevent them from winning back-to-back championships, which is the one thing that's missing from Dawn Staley's illustrious resume is the back-to-back championship. I think she'll get it next season because this team seems crazy.
I mean, I don't know how they're replacing Camilla. I don't know if you have any intel on that. Right. I look forward to seeing how they restructure things, how they replace Camilla, because that's a big replacement. I do predict that we're going to see UConn come back with a vengeance next year. And I think they're going to get, I think that's going to, I'm going to make my prediction for 2025 national championship game. UConn, South Carolina. They signed the number 1 player in the country, Sarah Strong, the day after they lost in the Final Four. Paige is coming back for one last hurrah. I think UConn is going all in. They'll have a couple girls back who got hurt. AZ Fudd will presumably be back. So I think UConn is going to be coming back for everything. And I think we will see, we got Iowa, LSU last year. We got Iowa, South Carolina this year. I think we're going to get South Carolina, UConn. I think UConn's coming back for like their get back to be like, okay, we know who's at the top of the mountain. We're retooling and coming back with everything. I think they're going to be on that path for a crash course. I'm feeling a little prophetic too there. I'm feeling a little prophetic. Yeah, I think you initially made the prediction, in fairness, because in the clip, that was me. I made the prediction. That was a lot of me making some prophetic predictions there. Because UConn didn't come out of your mouth, but in fairness, I think you were the first one to say your prediction would be UConn, South Carolina in the national championship this year.
Before that,
a separate part of that, but
what happened right before we got to the beginning of that is I said that I think that we'll get UConn, South Carolina, but I don't think there's a team in the country that was going to stop this team from getting back. So here we are. We are potentially on the precipice of both of us being correct about a UConn, South Carolina national championship. Before we get into the UConn component of this, I do want to ask you a question about UCLA, right? Because for most of the season, UCLA led by Lauren Betts up until the USC game when Juju went off the first one. Lauren Betts, I thought, was the best player in the country up to that point. She was likely leading the National Player of the Year conversation at that point as well. And UCLA was obviously undefeated. Since then, you and I have kind of, and you kind of started it, you and I have put an emphasis on needing to see more from Kiki Rice. I mentioned needing to see more from Janiah Barker if UCLA was going to actually get to the national championship and, for what I believe would be the first time in school history, I think. When you look at this UCLA team, you look at the UConn matchup, right? Is this a matchup that still hinges on whether or not Kiki Rice is effective in your mind? Because we know that Paige is going to be effective. We know Sarah Strong is going to be effective. We expect AZ to be effective, especially the way that she ended the game a couple nights ago. Kiki Rice she's come up a little bit, but I don't think she still had that game. She hasn't had that game yet in the tournament. Can UCLA, do you think, win this game if Kiki Rice isn't the Kiki Rice that we expect her to be based upon what she was earlier on in her collegiate career.
No, I mean, unless London Jones and Kiki Rice collectively can make life difficult for Paige Beckers, which is going to be really hard to do because she may be playing the best basketball of her career right now. You can probably expect she's going to play well. You've got to match that on the other end, and not just with your big inside. Like, you've got to match guard for guard. You've got to have a guard on the other side that is putting pressure on UConn. Paige and AZ, we know what they can do. AZ is kind of more dependent on like knocking down outside shots, but like even when she's 0 for 8, as we saw in the last game, they will run an elevator screen for her and go right to her in the first play of a fourth quarter. So they're going to keep going to her. No, I don't think UCLA can win this game without the signature game from Kiki Rice that I've said they're going to need to make a run. Even though Lauren Betts has been so dominant that like she's dominant enough where she could dominate UConn enough to win this game. I think she's that dominant where if they are force feeding her, if they are getting her the right looks, it could be enough to beat UConn. Lauren Betts has been that good and that dominant, in my opinion. UConn and Gino, they are just too smart, and I think they're going to be all over her, and they're going to force the guards to play better, and they're going to make it so they're not going to let Lauren Betts just dominate them and beat them. Maybe they take the approach of like, let Lauren Betts go off, but don't let anyone else eat. But I tend to think they're going to do doubling, a lot of digging, getting the ball out of her hands. So I think this is the game where you need really good guard play.
I agree with you. I mean, look, Lauren Betts has had 3 straight games where she's taken at least 14 shots. She took 17 shots in the second round in the Sweet 16, 16 shots in the Elite 8, and obviously 14 shots in the last game they played. She's shot at least 50% in all of those. Like, she has been on another level. Yeah. And when you look at what UCLA does when Lauren Betts takes at least even 15 shots, just add an additional shot, they win those games more often than not pretty handily. So you talked about Madison Booker needed to take 20 shots against South Carolina and how the last 2 times that she did take 20 shots, it was in wins over South Carolina and Tennessee. If UCLA can get Lauren Betts to take 15 shots and she's effective with those shots, which she is more often than not, that could be a recipe for success. But I do agree with you, though, with the way that Paige Beckers, I texted you this the other day, Paige Beckers is playing the best basketball of her life.
Freshman year. This is the closest we've seen since National Player of the Year freshman year Paige.
And it's great to see because you and I talked about a couple months ago when we talked about whether or not Paige is overrated. You had mentioned the fact that Paige's game felt a little bit different because of the toll that all the lower body injuries had taken on her and how she missed so much time. And yet you look up and she's, I believe I saw something, she's like 5th all-time scorer in NCAA tournament history. She's the 3rd all-time leading scorer in program history, despite playing 20 less games, I think, than everyone else that's on that list. And obviously she had 40 points the other night. Like she's been going crazy. And I said this to you the other day, and this has been my big thing with Lauren Betts all season. I do think that Lauren Betts is, I don't want to use the word generational, but I think that she's played transcendent enough this season where UCLA could win this game off the strength of just Lauren Betts.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah.
That should not be the game plan, though, to just force feed Lauren Betts.
Not against a team like UConn.
Not against
they're going to take that away. Like, but again, unless they feel like they can let her go off and just not let anyone else eat, they may take that approach.
But the other thing too is if the approach is, if Lauren Betts does go off, the flip side of that is because they can win the game that way. But if Lauren Betts is going to dominate,
that's probably not a good thing.
They have to be the most defensively sound they have been all season. If just Lauren Betts is going to be what takes them over the top and win this game, right? Because you mentioned with Paige playing as well as she's been playing, with Azzy Fudd playing the way, or AZ playing the way that she's been playing. Obviously, Sarah Strong's been playing well as well and been coming on. We're going to play a clip for her in just a second as well. I mean, even Audrey Griffin towards the end of that game came off the bench and played some key minutes for them. Caitlin Chen as well, same thing. Like they are getting, it's not just Paige and Az and Sarah. Like they're getting a little bit from those key role players as well. So when you talked about retooling last season, it seems like this retool job and this I don't want to call it a rebuild, but everyone's back healthy and this This retooling for UConn has worked to success. So it's not just Paige and AZ and Sarah that UCLA is going to have to focus on if they want to win this game and make it to the national championship.
True. And we talked about like when we kind of picked apart UConn a little bit a couple months before they blew out South Carolina. We had questions about UConn's identity. Are they getting a little soft? They weren't showing as much toughness. Even Gino was alluding to it. They got their toughness back.
Absolutely.
Caitlin Chen, Aubrey Griffin, like the way they're playing, the confidence of Paige, the confidence of Sarah Strong, they're playing tough. Caitlin Chen, like they found their toughness again. So that I think this is gonna be a really good game, I think, because UCLA has some toughness. They have big guards, right? They have size. So I think this is going to be a really good game. But I think where UConn has really found their edge is that they've found their toughness.
Yeah. Really quick, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to focus on Sarah Strong just a little bit. But we just want to say real quick, thank you to everyone that's watching. Please free to stay tapped in with us as we talk about this last part of the Final Four before we get out of here. If you're watching on the playback, we appreciate you. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below.
Sarah Strong is becoming the story at UConn. I don't know if you watched that game. Sarah Strong does whatever she wants, bro. They apparently are trying to explain to Sarah Strong how good she is. Like they're trying to introduce to her how good she actually is, because bro, it felt like every possession I saw Sarah Strong doing something, it was effortless, it was strong, it was smooth, off the bounce, driving the ball, passing the ball, shooting the ball. She was their biggest matchup advantage against Notre Dame, and at times looked like just their best player. So the main thing I want people to take away from that clip, the Protect Our Queens podcast will continue, and people like Nick Andre over on the Best W show do a great job of this too. But we will put you on to these players beforehand. That's the main thing. That was in December. Yeah. And, I got people texting me now like, yo, who's the girl Sarah Strong? Yo, who's the girl at Texas? Yo, who's the girl at this? I'm like, hey, man, tap into the Protect Our Queens podcast. We got you. We tell you in advance that these players are coming. So just as a heads up, like we told you this Sarah Strong thing. And I had a clip that I was spending hours trying to find from when I first talked about Sarah Strong, like in the summer. Yeah. When I saw highlights of her in high school and playing in the FIBA 3-on-3 thing, I'm like, hold on. Are y'all not seeing who this girl is that's coming to UConn? So trust me, we got you here. We got you. If you pay attention, you'll hear some names that in 6 months' time you'll be like, oh, that's who they were talking about. So Sarah Strong, you see everything I said in that clip. Is it not, Marcus? You've watched for more now. Has
absolutely? I'm watching the USC game the other night, and it's like every time Sarah Strong does something, it's like the first time it's happened in a quarter of a century. She's got the most double doubles in a tournament in a quarter of a century. She's got the most. She joined Maya Moore as the only other freshman to get 600 points. I'm like, Sarah Strong.
And isn't that crazy? Because that includes Paige Beckers, who was the National Player of the Year her freshman year, and she didn't even get to 600. She didn't get to 600. The last one to do it was Maya Moore. Go ahead.
The last thing I'll say, and I'll let you take it away because this is you've been championing this the whole way. The first thing I thought of when Olivia transferred, and you and I were talking about it, was you sent me that tweet that had UConn's name in it. For my sanity. For my sanity.
Probably for Muffet McGraw's sanity, too.
For Muffet McGraw's sanity. Please, Olivia Miles, whatever you do, don't go to UConn.
But you saying that really makes it like that's where she should go. Because if she plays with Sarah Strong, that would be crazy.
The country won't be able to handle it. You know how unfair that would be for Paige to go number one, and then they just replace her with Olivia. And we know that AZ is coming back, and they'll still have Sarah Strong. How unfair that would be to it makes me think about how it's like the San Antonio Spurs, right? Every year they have a rough year. They get the number one overall pick. First was David Robinson, then it's Tim Duncan, then it's Victor Wembanyama. Now they're trying to go get Cooper Flag. Like let's save some fun. Let's save some fun. Let's save some good basketball juju for the rest of us. For the sake of my sanity, please, Olivia Miles, do not go to UConn. That would be
Yeah, I mean that would I not to go back to Liv, but that would be a slap in the face. Like that would be a slap in the face to Niele Ivy, to Muffet McGraw, to Notre Dame. That would be a very choice decision. So I don't think you have anything to worry about there. I would love to see it from a basketball standpoint, but I feel where you're coming from. But yeah, forget the stats and the records and accolades. Just watch the basketball. Sarah Strong she's unstoppable. I don't even know who to compare her to anymore. She's unstoppable, bro. Her matchup with Kiki Iriafen, that's the main matchup I wanted to see in that game. Kiki Iriafen started out great in the first few minutes, and then she was dreadful the rest of the game. Sarah Strong won that matchup by a mile, and she's a freshman. Kiki Iriafen is getting drafted into the WNBA in 2 weeks. Yeah. Sarah Strong won that matchup by a mile. What I love about Sarah Strong, watching her, she has such a calm demeanor, just a humble demeanor about her. And I mean, I love players who are talk trash. Angel Reese, a little more vocal, a little more like loud about it. Like I love players like that too. But I also love players who are just very like calm killers. And that's what Sarah Strong is, because she goes about her business, keeps like the same facial reaction pretty much the whole time. But like she still plays with motor. She still plays with strength. And most of all, she plays with IQ. When UConn went to that 2-man game on the one side with Paige and Sarah Strong just down the stretch against USC, Gina was just like, yeah, get out. Go. You go to that side. You go to Paige right here. 2-man game right here. Run it. Get what you want, because Paige can step behind, shoot the three. We know what she can do in the midi. And then Sarah Strong as a roll, as a popper. You have every option available with that 2-man game with Paige and Sarah Strong. My brother said it to me because we've been following UConn since we were kids as young Rutgers fans in the old Big East, going to the rack and seeing Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi come to town and watching old UConn. My brother was like, and I was introducing him to Sarah Strong during the game. I'm like, yo, that's the girl. That's the freshman I told you about. He was like, man, Gino always brings a new one in, doesn't he? Paige may be on her way out. And I had a theory years ago that Paige would be the last hurrah for Gino. I thought he might bow out after Paige. If they win a natty, I don't think he's done yet, but I will be interested to see, because that'll be such a big story if they're able to win the natty. And they haven't won it. Like, it's been South Carolina, LSU, Baylor, it's been a while since UConn has been back on top. So I'll table that for now, but he's got Sarah Strong. I tend to think when you're a coach and you see the other girl out there, it's like, man, maybe I will stick around a few more years because I still got Sarah Strong. Man, that girl is special. She's so good. She is so good at basketball, bro. Her shooting touch. Like, do you see her 3-ball? Do you see how beautiful her jump shot is? How strong she is and just how she operates? Great passer too, by the way. Can make plays, You can tell that some players, you have to coach the unselfishness out of them. You have to coach them to be more selfish. Yeah. And that's what they were saying during the USC game, is that Gino was telling her before the game, shoot around, going through their actions. He's like, hey, you get it there. Well, we go. Don't pass up that shot. Nope. Don't make that skip pass. Don't make that. Nope. That's your, like, we're in the phase now where you got to go ahead and take that shot, because she's the type where almost any shot she takes is going to be a good shot for her, because she's smart and she's not going to take crazy shots. But also, if she takes a crazy shot, she's the kind of player you want taking a crazy shot, because she can do anything, bro. She's so good. She is so good from all spots on the floor.
So she won her matchup against Kiki. Do you think she'll win her matchup against Lauren Betts?
Well, I don't think that's as much of her matchup as Kiki was, because that's more of a power forward. That's more of a forward thing. Lauren is going to be a collective effort. I think they're going to use El Alfie a lot against. I think they're going to have their biggest bodies in there against Lauren Betts. And like I said, I think they're going to be doubling and digging a good amount and not playing her one-on-one. The question is, like, well, what is Lauren Betts going to, if UConn goes small with Sarah Strong at the 5, that will be interesting, because then she will match up with Lauren, but Lauren's going to have to match up with her too. And that's where the Sarah Strong matchup nightmare starts to come to play. So that'll be interesting to see how big or small UConn goes in this game.
I think the thing for me that was most impressive, I mean, there's a lot of things that's been very impressive about Sarah Strong, but what's been most impressive for me with her, and you mentioned the 2-man game, it's just how effective it is, right? Like, it's down the stretch of the USC game, right? I think we went into half and USC was down 10, and it was their largest it was their largest halftime deficit in a while. I don't remember the exact number, but it was it's been a minute since they were down double figures. They come into the third quarter and they kind of keep it close and they kind of stay attached going into the fourth. And you see in the fourth quarter, just time after time again, as you mentioned, Gino's on the sideline like, nope, yep, I want Paige and I want Sarah on the same side. And it worked. It worked every single time. And no matter what you do, you can't stop it. And when you look at the USC team, right? You look at that USC team, they've got Kennedy Smith, they had Avery Howe. I can't think of her first name, but you got Heckle out there as well. Like defensively, they're a pretty sound team defensively, our USC, when it comes to, the guards. And it makes me think with UCLA, like going back to the Kiki Rice point, going back to the London Jones point as well, like are they going to be able to handle even playing that defensively? Like we talked a little bit at the top about like if they're going to be able to handle just guarding Paige defensively or guarding AZ, like are they going to be able to handle moments in the game, because it works so well that Gino's going to go to it at the course of the game, but especially when they really, really need the shot. How is UCLA going to be able to manage that? Because that in of itself, forget all the the other people I mentioned, forget about Caitlin Chan and Griffin and all the others for just a second. Just that Paige and Sarah Strong on the same side of the floor together running the two-man game, that will likely be the undoing of UCLA in this game if they're able to, if UConn picks up early on, that they don't have a way to stop that. Yeah. And so that's why I go back to and say again, like it can't just like having Lauren Betts dominate sounds good, but if that's the case, then defensively UCLA has to be the most defensively sound they've been throughout the entire season, because that is a handful to worry about individually, but it's even more of a handful to worry about when they're playing that two-man game on the same side of the floor together, because it just works so well. It's like the most unstoppable piece of their offense, it seems like, for UConn. Like it's going to be really interesting to see for me. For me, the thing I'm most interested in is how UCLA plays that defensively and how they handle that.
Yeah, but I think the hardest thing about that is like figuring out what Paige is going to do, because she's such a smart player and she's so confident now that like she's starting to like find openings where she's just taking, for lack of better term or language, F-it shots. She's just putting it up there. So I don't think she's not second guessing. If she sees a little slip, if you go under, she's taking that step back. She's just letting it go behind the 3-point line. So when you say like, how do you guard that? I think you got to stay attached to Paige. I'm getting a little detailed basketball wise, but you can't go under. You got to try to stay attached. And you got to stay attached to Sarah Strong. To me, a Gardner, I think, is going to be the main matchup for Sarah Strong. That's just, it's tough, man, because they can both, between Paige and Sarah, they can both shoot from anywhere. They can both play make. They can make close shots. They can make medium shots. They can make long shots. So that two-man game is really, they probably are going to be going to that a lot. But, I would need more time to really talk about how they're going to defend it. But no, I think the toughest thing with it is Paige, because she's so confident with her shot making right now from all three levels. And so the way she's shooting, how confident she is when she finds that opening, that's what's going to make it tough. And that's what's going to put pressure on UCLA guards to be productive offensively. If Lauren Betts is dominating and is in a rhythm like that, that's what makes UCLA tough, because it takes pressure off of others on UCLA to have to score or do too much, because you're going through Lauren. It alleviates pressure. It creates, passing. Gabriela Jaquez gets a lot of shots off of Lauren Betts kicking out from down low. So like things open up for other players if Lauren Betts is dominating. But when things open up, you still have to deliver. You still got to hit those shots. You still got to find those driving lanes on the kickouts. So it's still on the guards to capitalize, even if Lauren Betts is, playing really well, because the guards are going to have to put some pressure on UConn, because UConn's guards are going to be doing what they do, starting with Paige.
Last thing I'll say on Paige is just funny. I just opened Instagram and I just saw this. Paige Beckers this season. She is the first player in UConn history with a 40-point game in the NCAA tournament. She's 105 points in a 3-game span, which is the most in UConn history. She has the highest point per game average in UConn history, 19.9 points, passing Maya Moore. She has 12 30-point games, which ties Maya Moore for the most.
No one at UConn has ever averaged 20? Is this in the tournament or just in the season?
This is
No,
This is
not in the tournament. She's not. She's having more than 19 in the tournament.
She's adding more than 19. I think this might be her career point per game average.
Career. Okay. Well, that's still surprising.
She has 2,406 career points, which is third on UConn's all-time scoring list. She's the fastest player in UConn history with 2,000 points in 102 games, passing Maya Moore. She's a four-time NCAA tournament regional most outstanding player. Only Maya Moore has also won it 4 times. And another cool note about Paige Beckers, as I mentioned earlier, Paige Beckers, I believe, has 444 points all time in her NCAA tournament career in 20 games. The all-time leading scorer in NCAA tournament history, Caitlin Clark, 492 points in 17 games. Paige Beckers plays well tonight, or plays well on Friday, makes the national championship, plays well again. She's 48 points away from becoming the all-time leading scorer in NCAA tournament history. So a couple of weeks ago, I think it actually might have been last Monday when we had Nick on the show. When you say that this might be the year for Paige Beckers, it's all falling in line, and this really could be the year for Paige Beckers. And there would be no better way for Paige to put a button on her career in UConn than finally win a national championship.
Yeah.
So
that's the best way. I mean, there are so many more accolades. We'd be here for much more longer than we need to be to actually go through them. But watching the basketball, it's obvious that this could be Paige's time. This is some of the best basketball she's played by far.
100%. We appreciate you guys for tapping in with us this morning and sticking with us for the course of the episode. Again, if you guys tapped in with us live or watch on the playback, we appreciate you. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to the to Basketball Society so you don't miss any future episodes of Protect Our Queens. We might not be here again before the national championship on Sunday. We will be here after the national championship on Sunday. And if I know anything about me and Martin Sories, we both are expecting the same national championship matchup of South Carolina and UConn. Only one of us is going to be ranked after Sunday, which means one of us is going to be happy. And if South Carolina loses, we might cancel the show next week. I don't know. So, for my guy Martin Sories of the Protect Our Queens podcast, this is Marcus of Protect Our Queens. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you enjoy the rest of your lives.